Next up on the Cosmic News Network, First Contact with Joshua Putt.
Good morning, Earthlings. Welcome back to First Contact Radio. How you doing today? It is Tuesday, the 17th of May, 2016. Our sun sign today is still in Taurus. Taurus is an earth sign represented in the tarot card by the Hierophant, Hebrew letter Va, meaning nail or hook. Whole idea is we want to hook together the spiritual to bring it down into the physical. Otherwise, the physical is just the physical, a drone, a golem, a creature. The spirit is very, very important in order to give us access to that higher kingdom from which all source emanates. The moon sign today is in Libra. Libra is an air sign. Air sign, this is all about balance. All about balance, trying to figure out the tarot card associated with that, justice. It's all about finding a balance. Okay, we have the scales of justice, and the thing about this is we are the ones who impose the justice upon our lives. Yes, there is a higher authority above us, but individually we have to also take charge of our lives. So we have to be aware of the things that we say that are going to help us. We also have to be aware of the things that we say and do that are going to hurt us, and we have to avoid those things. So we find a way to balance our life out. You know, we do good things happen. We do bad things happen. It just seems to be the way of the universe. So we keep in mind we need to find balance, justice in our lives. So we have an air sign and we have an earth sign. Think how air and earth work together. Earth is usually pretty stable, unless, of course, there's something major like an earthquake. And once that happens, something major that changes everything in the world, in the physical reality. Whereas the air sign is about the words we speak, the actions we take. So air and earth together, you can have the air blowing nice over the land, providing a nice, comfortable breeze for those walking upon the earth. Or the wind can get really crazy and it can be like a hurricane, something of that nature. So it just depends on how we use our words and actions, how responsible we are for such things. The aspects we're dealing with today take place this evening. We have two of them. We have Libra is in a sextile with Saturn. Saturn is telling us that we need to discipline, focus, harness our energies. So we're focusing on this balancing act that's going on. We're focusing on bringing everything together in our lives in balance. So as we get through the evening, so just pay attention to the lessons you're learning today because they'll play out tonight as we are dealing with these aspects. And then 11:37 p.m. we have a square lesson. That's when deep transformation from Pluto is going to get into the mix, where we're now going to have to really learn and allow ourselves to move through this process of transformation that's taking place. Change is one thing that is pretty certain in life, and when we get away from that, when we forget about that or think that we're going to avoid change, that's when we have the problem. So we have this lesson here that change comes in order to help us balance who and what we're about. And when we accept that, things move smoothly in our lives. We find that things unfold in a way then better than we had hoped that they might unfold. All right, so if we want to look at our aspects right here, moon sign 84.5% of the way up to the full moon. We'll be there on Saturday. Saturday into the full moon. Jewish calendar 9 Liar is the name of today. It's Omar count 24, moving into 25, beginning this evening. Daily thought for today is divine delights. God has many delights. the delight that comes from the pure and simple act of love. Greater than that, the delight that comes from the act of beauty sparkling in the darkness. Greater than that, the delight when a child who has run away from him returns with all her heart. All the world was formed from God's delight. There is nothing else. We're on the 6th day of this wave spell here. It's called the Red Rhythmic Moon on the Dreamspell Oracle. The moon is all about purification. So we have the rhythmic purification guided by purification. Phrase for today is I organize in order to purify, balancing flow. I seal the process of universal water with a rhythmic tone of equality. I am guided by my own power doubled. And we are in the midst of these 10 days in a row. Galactic Activation Portal Days is what they're called. Basically an intensification of the energy. We have a reflection of these 10 days here, reflected in these 10 days, with the middle pillar being that central column on which everything moves around. If you would imagine this as more than just a flat object, but something a little bit more 3 or 4 dimensional. This is the middle pillar, and everything's moving around this. So these first 6 columns reflect these last 6 columns. Space weather. The solar wind is currently at 508 kilometers per second. Planetary K index is quiet, moving into an unsettled range over the next 24 hours. This large coronal hole in the sun is really opening up quite a bit, so we will be feeling the effect from that. We got one on the bottom as well. M-class flare possibility seems to be subsiding, moving down from 10% where we are now to 5% over the next 24 to 48 hours. X-class flare remains at 1%. Geomagnetic storm activity seems to be subsiding as well. The mid-latitudes are dropping from 30 to 25, 15 to 5. In the high latitudes, there seems to be also a decrease, 10 down to 15, and severity 30 down to 50. So things are dropping a bit. It's just, the universe is breathing in and out. The sun is providing its energy to help us and help it breathe in and out. And finally, up in the sky tonight, look for Spica lower left of the waxing gibbous moon. The moon's right or upper to the moon's right or upper right is fainter Gamma Virginis, famous close double star for telescopes. The near equal components are currently 2.5 arc seconds apart. Okay, so that's what we're looking at today. So just remember, we have Earth, we have air, we have an opportunity today to express what is going on inside, to create balance, while at the same time finding a way to have that balance attained by bringing spirit down into who we are. And it's really not bringing spirit down so much, because spirit is already down. It's bringing spirit outward, because it all emanates through. I like to think of it as a flowing forth. Emanating means flowing forth. So the energy is flowing forth, and as it flows forth, we are a product of that is flowing forth. So everything continues to flow forth from us. It's not as if something has to come down to us. It's coming through us and expressing outward. So we are an expression of that which is pushing itself outward, and that's what we are. And as we allow energies to continue to flow out of us, as has been discussed before, it's like a movie theater. We're like a projector, and we're projecting out that inward vision. So as we're clear, the vision we're projecting out and the movement we're projecting out into the world is something that has more clarity than if there is a lot of confusion with who and what we are about. It's not too difficult when we look at the whole process, but there's a lot of pieces involved, and so it can be quite challenging to go through on a day-to-day basis, because there are so many things we have to deal with, so many distractions and so on. Okay, UFO News is up next.
This is the UFO News with Joshua Poet.
All right, Dirk, thank you very much. I have 4 stories today. First one comes from a taxi driver In the UK, taxi driver takes photo of a UFO during sunset in Doncaster, UK. One thing I often say is that if you want to see a UFO, then watch a dozen sunsets. The light bending around the cloak can go only 180 degrees, but when it has to go an extra 90 degrees during sunset, the cloak malfunctions and is semi-visible for a few seconds to a few minutes. Here's some diagrams just to give you an examples of that, just to show you what's going on there. And there is the object in question. A Doncaster cabbie thought he was photographing a beautiful sunset, but now he thinks he caught a UFO. Janelle Sai was walking home through Balby when he caught sight of a beautiful sunset. He took a number of pictures on his mobile phone to show the other people, but when he got home, he showed his wife. He noticed mysterious shape on the picture we had not initially noticed, and now believes it to be an unidentified flying object. He said, I was just walking along Balby Road and passing Westfield Park when I thought how beautiful the sky looked. It looked so nice I thought I would take a photograph. I took one, took another a bit further down the road, then took another one after that. I went home, I showed the pictures to my wife. She enlarged the photo and saw a dot there. I checked the other two, it wasn't on them. It's not a bird, it's not a plane, I don't know what it is. There was something there, I just can't explain it and I don't recognize. It is something out of the ordinary. I think it is a UFO. I was silent, whatever it was, as I didn't hear anything. There may be life on other planets, I don't know. I'm open-minded about UFOs. I suppose there's always been the possibility, but I do think I have seen something out of the ordinary. It's in the distance, so I don't think it could be a fly, and I think it's too big and too far away to be a drone. Janelle took his picture on Sunday, May 8th. His camera shows. You think his picture is a UFO? That's the question. There it is right there. Okay, so whatever it is, it's large enough that it looks, this size in the distance, so it obviously can't be a fly or a bird because that would be a pretty large fly or a pretty large bird, whatever that might be. Some sort of craft, some sort of object, definitely there. Crop circle, May 6th, May 15th. This one was in Brandenburg, Germany. This swirling crop circle was found this week in Germany. It has 6 long moon-like lines going towards the center, which makes the pressed down area, which are 6 more lines. The center look more like a hexagon than a circle. So does this mean 6/16 or June 16th? Perhaps a special event will take place on this date. What's your take on this crop circle? So it certainly does look like a swirling object, like one of those pinwheels we see, spinning round and round. Could be a whirlpool, portal. Very interesting. Links available, First Contact Radio, so you can check that out. First major UFO public hearing could have answers to the Roswell incident. A significant step towards disclosure will happen very soon as the public debate on the existence of UFO and aliens with the involvement of former government ministers will be held next month. Canada has an unprecedented number of UFO sightings. In response to it, the first Canadian national public hearing on UFOs is being organized. The inquiry also hopes to get to the truth about the 1947 Roswell incident once again. In 2015 alone, the country received 1,267 incidents involving UFOs. The major event on June 25, 2016, Saturday in Brantford, Ontario, is to address and investigate this mystery. Paul Hellyer-led Canadian Research and Development Team has been formed to organize the important event. Hellyer is a member of the Queen's Privy Council, former Minister of Defense, and Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Hellyer is considered as the highest-ranking ex-government official to acknowledge the ET existence in the global cover-up. According to the spokesman for the Research and Development Team, the panel is composed of elite individuals. They are prepared to present unimpeachable evidence not only to the truth about the UFO phenomena, but also the fact that it has been discussed, analyzed, investigated, kept secret from the public at the highest levels of governments on the earth. Internationally acclaimed experts are expected to present their case in support of the existence of extraterrestrials, UFO truth, and what world governments, White House, Pentagon, NORAD, and Vatican know about the subject matters. All right, so that should be very interesting. It takes place on the 25th of June. And finally, one more UFO story for today, UFO and Nukes Connection, and examined in the new film, The Amazing, Ominous Secret Revealed by Robert Hastings. When CNN live streamed my UFO and Nukes press conference in Washington, D.C., September 27, 2010, I assumed far too optimistically, as it turned out, that the mainstream media would react with sustained interest and finally begin to ask hard questions of less than candid government officials. After all, the 7 U.S. Air Force veterans who participated in the event had just divulged still classified information about UFOs, shutting down large numbers of nuclear missiles, hovering over nuclear bomb storage bunkers, monitoring still unfinished ICBM silos, and other incredible incidents during the Cold War era. The press conference was a culmination of years of investigation into such events that I began in earnest in 1973 when I started interviewing U.S. military veterans regarding their involvement in cases where UFOs had demonstrated an obvious interest in nuclear weapon sites. In 1981, it was clear to me that the situation was very real and ongoing, and I concluded I needed as much exposure as possible. Consequently, I went out on the college lecture circuit to attempt to inform the American public as best as possible about the dramatic developments that had been kept from them for decades. In addition to my speaking engagements, my 600-page book, UFOs and Nukes, Extraordinary Encounters at Nuclear Weapon Sites, published in 2008, has gradually captured an ever larger worldwide following over time. Nevertheless, it seemed to me that the largest possible audience would be generated by producing and distributing a documentary film that presented the hidden history of nuclear weapon-related UFO activity in a fast-paced, virtually engaged manner, hence the creation of a documentary film, UFO and Nukes, The Secret Link Revealed, which is now available on Vimeo. Well, the film has been just made accessible. Initial reviews are very favorable. Gary Hazeltine, editor of UFO Truth eZine, called it the best UFO documentary I've ever seen. Frederick Udall of Exopolitics Denmark Group wrote that the film is absolutely brilliant, definitely one of the top 5 UFO documentaries of all time. Okay, so there you go. Got links to it, so you can go check it out. See what it's about. Good UFO documentaries are always fun to watch. Very informative because people are still finding out more information about them all the time. So there you have it. That's our UFO news for today. Stay tuned. I'll be back.
What if our government was responsible for some of the greatest crimes against this nation? Would you really want to know? These are big questions, but these questions deserve answers. It's time to demand the truth.
People shouldn't be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of them.
9/11 was an inside job. Kennedy was killed by the CIA. Jimmy Carter saw UFO. Answers to secrets you need to know. So wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Patriots arise. It's time to demand the truth.
Okay, I'm back. So, I play that song quite often, Wake Up. I play it for a reason because I want people to hear it. I want people to hear it because I want people to wake up to what's going on. I'm not the only one who is talking about waking up. There's a lot of folks out there in the alternative media that are using the phrase and talking about waking up. But what is this waking up? What does it mean? Why does somebody say to wake up? You tell somebody to wake up when you think that they're asleep. So there's a portion of society which is moving through life sleepwalking, not paying attention to what's going on, as if they're in a dream state, and others are trying to remind them to wake up. Look at what's taking place in the world around you. You see, when we're sleeping and we're moving through life in a sleepwalking manner, it's easy to be manipulated. It's easy for people to do things without us knowing because we're not paying attention. And this has been going on for a long while. False flags have been done on the people. False flags are events where one group does something to another group and then blames somebody else for it. So we see this happen all the time, these false flags where somebody is falsely accused. And these have been going on for a long time. Why are they going on? Because people are sleepwalking through life and not noticing that these events are taking place. So as long as people are sleepwalking through life and events keep getting played and people aren't noticing, then the powers that be keep using the same plays over and over. Why change the play if it works? It's like a sports event. If you have a play and the play works and the other team can't defend it, you're just going to keep doing that play over and over and over again. Same thing with the government. They keep running the same play over and over because Americans aren't paying attention. So when we don't pay attention, bad things can happen. And we're in a situation in the world today where a lot of bad things are going on, and Americans are waking up to the reality of what's going on. One example is this election cycle. Throughout this process, Americans are finding out, because of the candidate Donald Trump, that there are ways in which that they've been manipulated. People are understanding and learning more about the media manipulation that's been taking place. People are understanding about the lies they've been told about the way the system works. People are understanding and learning that the vote that they've been casting and what they have to say hasn't been properly counted. And so people are starting to pay more attention, which is good, which is why we see some of this arguing and fighting that's going on. We still have a ways to go. We certainly do, but it is getting better. Now, if we don't pay attention to things, we miss little details. Things just slide by. And oftentimes the mainstream media is not going to report on such events because it's not in their vested interest to. However, there are organizations and groups that do present truthful information, maybe not in the way that you might expect, but in subtle ways. One example, let me back over here. One example is this magazine, the National Enquirer. Now, people laugh about the National Enquirer and say it's just a gossip column. But this gossip column has released a lot of information that has been factual. The only thing is, because this is known as a gossip column, it's easy to put information in there and then have it discredited because people will say, oh, it's a gossip column, and they'll walk right by. However, the person who is responsible for putting this story in, maybe it might be a government official, maybe it might be someone in the CIA, FBI, one of the alphabet agencies, they've done their part. They made the information available to the public. It's not up to them to decide or care whether the public believes it or not. All the information needs to be done is put out there. So here's an article that says Ted Cruz's father was linked to the JFK assassination. Well, that's a big assertion, and that's something that is very important to us. I would think it'd be important because for the last 50 years, this has been the biggest murder mystery in America. Who killed JFK? There's been a lot of documentaries about it. There's been research about it. 50 years of evidence that has been gathered and collected. We have a good idea of what happened. We certainly know that the lone gunman story of Harvey Oswald isn't what they claim it to be, that it was something much more than that. But the government officials, they really kind of stay away from it. Every now and then you see something leak out. This is one of the big stories that came out, and coincidentally, it was only a matter of hours after Donald Trump. I mean, this article came out, the mainstream didn't talk about it, and then Donald Trump made mention of it in the morning when he was on Fox and Friends, that this article existed. Hours later, Ted Cruz dropped out of the race. Now, Ted Cruz, prior to that, said he was not leaving the race. So why did he drop out? He dropped out because there must have been some truth to this article, and somebody was concerned that if he continued to stay in the race, the heat would get turned up on this and people would want to dig into it more and more. If you notice how the story just dropped out of existence, nobody's questioned it or looked at it anymore in the media. Well, here's a story that might give us some idea that what was in here had some truth to it. So the journalist who exposed Marco Rubio's Sodomite ties and Ted Cruz's father's ties to Lee Harvey Oswald was found dead. This first part here is just to remind you, there was also a journalist, same one, who put out the information about Marco Rubio and his past homosexual activity when he was in Florida, the foam parties that he used to attend, information about this arrest that took place at a park that he was at with a male friend that was involved in gay pornography out there in Florida in a park where such activities take place. Shortly afterwards, Marco Rubio dropped out of the race. So when this allegation comes to light, or these allegations come to light, it has an effect, and people often drop out because they don't want the trail to be investigated any further. So this story tells us that the journalist who exposed these things was found dead. Gary Welsh, an attorney and political blogger at Advance, Indiana, he was found shot to death in a stairwell of an apartment block May 1st. He was the source, according to Wayne Matson, for the photos of Marco Rubio at Sodomite venues in South Florida, as well as contributed to the story about Senator Ted Cruz's father having ties with Lee Harvey Oswald. The Indy Star reports Indianapolis police are investigating the death of a prominent political commentator as a suicide. IMPD Captain Richard Riddle confirmed Sunday. Police were called to an apartment building at the 400 block of North Park Avenue shortly before 8 a.m. Sunday on a report of a person shot. Police dispatched what the caller observed as what they believed to a person shot in the stairwell of the building with a gun still laying at the scene. The police report person shot was confirmed and victim was pronounced deceased at the scene by the medics. Welsh's body was taken to the Marion County Coroner's Office, where an autopsy is expected to be performed Monday. Considered that his final blog post, which was written 2 days before his death, he wrote, "If I'm not around to see the vote results, my prediction is that Trump wins Indiana with just shy of 50% of the vote, but he will carry every single congressional district and sweep the delegate race, assuming that party-chosen delegates honor their rules-bound commitment to support the winner on the first ballot. Most of those delegates favored John Kasich at the time they were chosen. Only 2 of the delegates named by state party officials publicly declared their support for Trump, although some have indicated they would feel obliged to support the voters' wishes. Some of Welsh's readers expressed concern over his safety, especially in light of the fact that his blog did focus on a lot of issues of voter fraud. By the way, Gary, we should read any foreboding in your words about if you are around for the election results. Take care of yourself," wrote Mary Catherine Barton. Jim Klimek, a friend and fellow attorney who worked across the hall from Wells, said that he appeared depressed and concerned that he was making little money with his blog. In an interview with investigative journalist Wayne Matson, Matson spoke about the work that Welsh had done. "I don't know about you, but I find the whole thing suspicious in light that the man wrote 2 days prior and some of the things that had been in which he had been engaged." Okay, so if this was the first time this ever happened, we might not think anything of it, but it's often the case that somebody who is involved like this is found dead oftentimes they have been suicided, which means it's made to look like they committed suicide when in the actual eventuality somebody killed them. And you can often find, strange circumstances. Someone commits suicide with 2 gunshots to the back of their head. Well, how does that happen? And all the strange circumstances that go on around it. So lies, lies, lies. The media goes along with this. People, nonetheless, are unaware of what is taking place. So why does all this go on? How does this happen in the world we live in? How is it that we are manipulated in such ways? Well, it's very simple. The mind is a very powerful thing, and the mind can be controlled. And those who are invested in governments and embedded in alphabet agencies, they want to manipulate your mind. They have spent years working on how to manipulate your mind, and now those projects are out in the open. Remember earlier this year we talked about the social engineering that was going to be done on the American people without them knowing? Most people aren't even aware of it at this point in time. Most people have probably forgotten about the articles that came out about such things, but nonetheless, there's experiments going on the American people, social experiments. People aren't aware of this, but the governments are. They're running these tests to see how people think, how you feel, so they can categorize you, put you into different groups, where they think you go, so on and so forth. So this media manipulation continues on through this process. And then we have DARPA, which has announced a program that they were doing of mapping the brain. They want to map a brain. They want to put a brain inside a robot. And then who knows where we go from there. So why does all this happen? Well, let me show you something here. Pull up this graphic real quick. It's been a little bit since I showed you this. These are the 7 principles of Hermetic science. First principle is the one we're going to look at. It's the principle of mentalism. Very simple. It says we live in a universe that is a mental universe, a giant mind, a mental construct. So everything that's going on within this mental construct can be manipulated because it's all a mind. It's affecting how we think. It is how we think, and we are connected in with that. So if somebody knows how to get in and manipulate that process before it gets to us, then they have an opportunity to manipulate us because we receive this energy. We receive this information. And then with that information, we go and we do something with it. So since we're receivers of this information, there's a source somewhere that is beaming out this information. Now, the source that is beaming out the information to us is not something that's beaming it from the inside, but on the outside. It's physical machines, physical technologies that are working upon the physical body. Secret and key to everything is when we go inside, we unlock what is inside. That is where the true technology is. We don't need any special machines to help us get from here to there. We just simply need to go inside. We need to connect with that which is inside of us. And once we do, we find that we're freed up from many of the controls that are put in place around us. So I brought a couple articles up here about the kind of control that takes place to keep us enslaved. Mind control is a very big one. If someone can control our minds, then they can control who and what we are, what we're doing. This is from a website called educateyourself.org. The topic of mind control is elaborate, multifaceted, and multi-layered. For the casual reader, it can quickly become numbing, overwhelming the senses, and creating desire to exit the topic. But avoiding this subject is the most foolish thing you could possibly do, since your only chance of surviving the hideous and insidious enslavement agenda, which today threatens virtually all of humanity, is to understand how it functions and take steps to reduce your vulnerability. The plans to create mind-controlled worker society has been in place for a long time. The current technology grew out of the experiments that the Nazis started before World War II and intensified during the time of the Nazi concentration camps, when an unlimited supply of children and adults were available for experimentation. We've heard about the inhumane medical experiments performed on concentration camp prisoners but no word was ever mentioned by the media or the TV documentaries of the mind control experiments that was not to be divulged to the American public. Mind control technologies can be broadly divided into two subsets: trauma based and electronic based. The first phase of the government mind control development grew out of the old occult techniques, which required the victim to be exposed to massive psychological and physical trauma, usually beginning in infancy, in order to cause the psyche to shatter into 1,000 altered personalities, which can then be separately programmed to perform any function or job that the programmer wishes to install. Each altered personality creates a separate and distinct is created separate and distinct from the front personality. The front personality is unaware of the existence or the activities of the altered personalities. Altered personalities can be brought to the surface by programmers or handlers using special codes, usually stored in a laptop computer. The victim of mind control can be affected by specific sounds, words, actions known as triggers. So, I'm going to stop here for a moment. What is it, the thing that these social justice warriors are saying happens? They are triggered. Okay? They're triggered. It's a word that's being used in these mind control circumstances. So what's going on here is the mind, which is one unit that is working together in unity, is provided with something that causes it to break, to snap, to crack. And once it does and it splits, then these other sections of the mind which are split are now vulnerable. And a person might not be aware of all these different aspects and phases, but these technologies allows these scientists to be able to look at these different splits and take one of them and then manipulate one of them. So there's almost like this hidden area of control that is unaware of, like a computer that has a chip in it that has a little virus in it. And so this is where the manipulation takes place, because then every time a certain keyword or a certain phrase or whatever it is that is mentioned triggers that particular hidden piece of the mind, and now there's an effect that goes by it, because once something is triggered, then something happens. We can tell that there's a lot of mind control going on simply by the word that is being used. You hear these social justice warriors, these young millennials, they've been triggered, they've been triggered, they've been triggered. Of course they've been triggered. They're being controlled mentally, and that's what's taking place. The second phase of mind control development was refined at an underground base at Fort Hero in Montauk, Long Island, New York, and is referred to as the Montauk Project. The earliest adolescent victims of Montauk-style program, also called Montauk Boys, were programmed using trauma-based techniques, but that method was eventually abandoned in favor of an all-electronic induction process, which could be installed in a matter of days or even hours, instead of the many years that it took to complete trauma-based methods. Dr. Joseph Mengele of Auschwitz notoriety was the principal developer of the trauma-based Montauk Project and the CIA's MK-Ultra mind control programs. Mengele and approximately 5,000 other high-ranking Nazis were secretly moved to the United States and South America in the aftermath of World War II in Operation designated Paperclip. These Nazis continued their work in developing mind control and rocketry technologies in secret underground military bases. The only thing that they were told was that the rocketry work with former Nazi stars, celebrities like Werner von Braun. The killers, torturers, and mutilators of innocent human beings were kept discreetly out of the sight, but busy in U.S. underground military facilities, which gradually became home to thousands upon thousands of kidnapped American children, snatched off the streets, about 1 million per year go missing, and placed into iron bar cages stacked from floor to ceiling as part of the training. These children would be used to further refine and perfect Mengele's mind-controlled techniques. Certain selected children, at least the ones who survived the training, would become future mind-controlled slaves who would be used for thousands of different jobs ranging anywhere from sex slavery to assassination. A substantial portion of these children who were considered expendable were intentionally slaughtered in front of the other children in order to traumatize the selected trainee into total compliance and submission. The lone gunman that we hear about in assassinations assassination attempts, school shootings, etc., are mind-controlled individuals who've been programmed to carry out those missions. Ted Bundy, the son of Sam, serial killer David Berkowitz, Oswald, Timothy McVeigh, the Columbine shooters, Chapman, Saran, etc., were mind-controlled individuals who were programmed to perform these killings. Tens of thousands of young teenage boys were kidnapped and forced into the mind-controlled training programs called the Montauk Project, starting around 1976. Al Bielek, under mind control, was involved in many of the areas of the Montauk Project. After slowly recovering his memories, beginning in the late 1980s, came to realize there were at least 250,000 mind-controlled Montauk boys produced at 25 different facilities, similar to the underground base at Montauk, Long Island. Many of these boys were becoming sleepers, who are individuals who were programmed to go into action at a later date when properly triggered to engage in some sort of destructive or disruptive conduct. Other Montauk boys were woven into the fabric of mainstream American life as journalists, radio and TV personalities, businessmen, lawyers, medical professionals, judges, prosecutors, law enforcement, military men, etc. So the day is now approaching in which the government mind control technologies will be directed at you, your neighbors, your loved ones. Every single day, equipment is being erected and installed in this country with the hidden purpose of exerting a mind control over the entire population. Everywhere in this country and overseas, ELF, extremely low frequencies, microwave transmission towers are being created. The antenna usually looks like four slightly curved vertical plates about 2.5 feet in length, located in either 3 or 4 quadrants around the tower, 2/3 up from the ground. Just look around and you'll see them. And you'll also notice more of these going up once you begin to pay attention. No one is saying anything, but they've expected to presume that they're for cell towers, cell phones. But do you really think we need that much cell phone transmission capability every few blocks? Do you realize how little energy is used by genuine cell phone usage? Yet these towers are capable of putting out levels of power that exceed cell phone requirements by a wide margin. These mind-controlled technologies have been in place for a long time. It's not an accident that the frequency band chosen for cell phones just happened to match the second-order waves that William Reich discovered in the 1940s to affect thought transmission and allow mind to be manipulated with the victim without the victim realizing it. Reich worked on this project secretly for the CIA over 5 years, from 1947 through 52, until he realized who the CIA was planning to use the mind control on, the American people. He was outraged and he was deceived and used for such a treasonous motive, and swore never to cooperate with the CIA, FBI again. Reich was covertly murdered in federal prison in 1957, just a few years before he was due to be released, having been in prison for 2 years on a trumped-up charge leading to a corrupt contempt of court citation. He was reported to have had a heart attack, yet he was strong as an ox. He was murdered 2 weeks before his parole board hearing. His last book, written in prison, was found to be missing after his death and never returned to his family. A method was discovered to disable these ELF towers from exerting their mind control functions by placing a simple device known as an orgone generator within a radius of 1,300 feet of these towers. These microwave towers are used in conjunction with heart-based technology to not only affect the subliminal mind control influences, but also control the weather. The creation of artificially induced condition are also greatly influenced by the population reduction. Okay, so there's more to this article here. I'm going to leave this page for you here. This is real. This is what goes on. So every day when we go into the world, we're being affected, bombarded by such things. We need to be aware of this. We need to be aware of such things. The technologies have been perfected over the years. We have the chemtrails in the air, which are certainly affecting us. We don't know how, because we don't know everything that's being put into them, but they're being sprayed in us. There's GMOs in the foods, genetically modified organisms, which are in there, so we're taking those in. And then, of course, most everybody these days has a television or a smartphone. Well, the television certainly is beaming out signals to you. We know that. And this is probably the greatest tool that the CIA has ever had because everyone has one in their home. You turn it on, you sit there, and you just veg out into the TV. Your mind goes into a vegetative state. Now, once you're watching that TV, all that's needed is continued manipulation. You've got the blinking lights, you got the sounds, you got the colors, you got the things scrolling back and forth, you have the moving images. So your mind is completely inundated with all sorts of activity. And then you have those who get on and they manipulate through the stories that they tell you. There's an article at Global Research, Truth, War, Propaganda, CIA, and Media Manipulation. Never before has it been so important to have independent, honest voices and sources of information. We are, as a society, inundated and overwhelmed with a flood of information from a wide array of sources, but these sources of information, by and large, serve the powerful interest in individuals that own them. The main sources of information for both public and official consumption include the mainstream media, alternative media, academia, and think tanks. The mainstream media is the most obvious in its inherent bias and manipulation. The mainstream media is owned directly by large multinational corporations, and through their boards of directors are connected with a plethora of other global corporations and elite interests. An example of these connections can be seen through the board of Time Warner. Time Warner owns Time Magazine, HBO, Warner Brothers, and CNN, among many others. The board of directors include past or presently affiliated with members of the Council on Foreign Relations, the IMF, the Rockefeller Brothers Fund, Warburg, Princess, Philip Morris, and AMR Corporation, among many others. Two of the most esteemed sources of the news in the U.S. are the New York Times, referred to as the paper of record, and the Washington Post. The New York Times has on its board people who are past or presently affiliated with the Schering Plough International Pharmaceutical Company, the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation, Chevron, Wesco Financial Corporation, Kohlberg and Company, the Charles Schwab Corporation, eBay, Xerox, IBM, Ford Motor Company, Eli Lilly and Company, among many others. Hardly a bastion of impartiality. At the same time, and the same could be said for the Washington Post, which has on its board Lee Bollinger, the president of Columbia University and former chairman of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, an individual associated with, past or presently, the Coca-Cola Company, the New York University Conservation International, the Council on Foreign Relations, Xerox, Catalyst, Johnson & Johnson, Target Corporation, Rand Corporation, General Motors, and business councils, among many others. It is also important to address how the mainstream media is intertwined, often covertly and secretly, with the government. Carl Bernstein, one of the two Washington Post reporters who covered the Watergate scandal, revealed that there are over 400 American journalists who had secretly carried out assignments for the Central Intelligence Agency. Let me say that again. He revealed that there were over 400 American journalists who secretly carried out assignments for the CIA. Interestingly, the use of these journalists has been among the most productive means of intelligence gathering employed by the CIA. Among organizations which cooperated with the CIA were the American Broadcasting Company, the National Broadcasting Company, the Associated Press, United Press International, Reuters, Hearst Newspapers, Scripps Howard, Newsweek, the Mutual Broadcasting System, the Miami Herald, and the Old Saturday Evening Post, and the New York Herald Tribune. Okay, so I'm going to leave the rest of this article to you. Let's add some more up to date to that. Facebook. Facebook is one of the big ones. We can go and we can connect that the first monies going into Facebook came from CIA related sources. And we know and have heard stories of Mark Zuckerberg and his potential involvement or connection to the CIA. There's stories out there that allege that he's actually a Rothschild and that Zuckerberg is just a cover, that he's been involved with CIA activities from the beginning, so on and so forth. So, how many people use Facebook? Millions. How many people are being manipulated by what happens there? Millions. Just another source. And as I read through those examples, you probably heard lots of companies in there that are involved with things today. Target was one of the companies, wasn't it? And aren't we hearing about this bathroom agenda going on in Target? Okay, and we can go through and we can just see. It's a manipulation that's taking place, and as long as the American people turn a blind eye to it, it's going to continue to happen. Why change the plan if Americans and people aren't noticing what is going on? You just keep doing the same play over and over. One more article, 6 examples of media manipulation. This is from Sigmund Freud at the Activist Post. The world of television and modern media has become a tool of de-evolution, propaganda, and social control. Since the age of Edward Bernays and the rise of Tavistock Institute in the early 20th century, nearly unlimited resources have been applied to understanding how to manipulate the human psyche through television and other forms of mass media. What we have today is an increasingly sophisticated full-spectrum assault on free will and psychological well-being, and we have come to the point where we no longer even necessary for media institutions to attempt to hide their blatant work of manipulating public opinion, manufacturing consent, and creating winners and looters in the mind of the already brainwashed public. Here's 6 examples where truth reveals that the impression the media is conveying to the dumbed-down, unsuspecting public differs greatly from that which is actually happening behind the scenes. By looking at these examples in a single location, it's easy to see how the mainstream media pushes ulterior motives on the public and how important it is to be vigilant when consuming their info. Okay, so I'm just going to brief over this here. We have Time Magazine sanitizes their covers for American consumption. So we have various examples here. CNN is the leader in fake news coverage. You can go online, find many examples of them staging stories. Some of them, like this one here, you look at it and you just realize how ridiculous this is because it looks like they're in a studio and everything's so fake about it. Reality TV is another way things are manipulated. People think reality TV is unscripted, but it's not unscripted. There's scripts, there's things that take place, it's not what people think it is. Nationally scripted local news, how many times, and you can see examples where across the country, and here's some examples right here, where you will see them talking about the same story, reading the same script, yet they are in different areas of the country. So you wonder, how is it they're all reading the same script? Because somebody's presenting them with the same script. Manipulating images is war propaganda. This happens all the time in order to drag us into continual wars. And finally, advertising industry touches up images of people. Okay, that way, people are never aware of what's going on. Body images are changed, so on and so forth. Whether for marketing or manufacturing consent, the media industry is guilty of using subtle and not so subtle tactics to influence our conscious and subconscious minds, to influence our opinions and behavior. There are countless other examples of these practices, and discerning, awake people would be well served to be vigilant of this when consuming modern media in any form. You don't have to be paranoid these days to acknowledge that you're being lied to, and the institutions that we should be able to depend on for bringing us objective view are anything but objective. Okay, so there you go. Mind control, media manipulation, it's happening all around us. So as you go through today, see if you can determine how many times manipulation is occurring in your reality. You'll find it more often than not, and you might be quite surprised when you do. And it's in your face. Not only is it in your face, but people are so manipulated that the powers that be are letting people know that they're manipulating them. But people are so manipulated that they don't even notice. So when they tell the public, we're doing social experiments on you, public doesn't know. They don't care. They're not thinking about that because they're so far gone already. That's why it is so important for people to wake up, wake up, wake up. Because as long as we remain in this sleep that is brought about through manipulation and programming, we're going to continue to move through life dancing to the tune somebody else wants us to dance to, as opposed to moving to that which is truly inside of us. So we have a battle going on between man and God. Maybe we'll call it the devil and God, because the man has become the adversary. And it's not just one adversary now. There's many adversaries who are siding with that dark influence of control. So we need to take a look at things and really pay attention because you could see all the manipulation. It's happening. It's happening, my friends, each and every day. Each and every day. Now, part of the problem that we're dealing with individually is we get into cycles of reincarnation. We live, we die, we leave the body, we come back to the body in another form, and we go through it. But sometimes we have memories of these other lifetimes, and sometimes this lingers on and causes us problems. Maybe that's part of what's going on with the transgender community. Maybe there's a bleed through from a previous lifetime where you were another gender. Maybe that's what's taking place. I'm not 100% certain on that, but I think it certainly plays a part into the mix because we do go from lifetime to lifetime. Maybe it's simply a fracturing of the mind, as was discussed. Maybe somebody had a traumatic experience in life and their mind fractured and a part of it went off and connected into something else that they thought was safe or protective. There's a lot of different ways because the mind is quite complex. Here's an article called How to Heal Past Life Programming. Have you ever been told that you were part of the cause for the fall of Atlantis? Do you feel that you have played the role of the dark in this past life, in a past life? If you are one of these people, you may have negative past life experience that you need to be healed. Coupled with today's mind control programming and deep encoded past life experience, the result is fear of falling into traps that will cause the same pattern and repeating mistakes. The program is carried in the DNA. We are in the final stages of clearing and hidden guilt is one of the most prevalent energies that we have left to overcome. It keeps you from being able to forgive and love yourself wholly. Programming in today's society is designed to make you feel like you are never good enough and that you cannot make decisions on your own. Programming in past lives is encoded in your DNA and is coming forth at this time to be cleared. Gifted psychics can actually tune into your field to tap into these pictures and energies. Recognition and letting go through transmutation are the keys of clearing past life encoding. The first thing to review is whether the actions in a past life were a result of your own free will or things out of power, control, or greed. Many were mind controlled at the time of Atlantis to do things that were not in the best interest of humanity. Mind control actually began back at the beginning of the Adam Kadmon version of the human body, at the time when the creators of man were using genetically modified as slaves to mine precious minerals from the earth. Many of these things that humans did in the past lives are not of their own free will. When the laws of the universe are broken, how can a person hold themselves accountable for their actions? Others were mind controlled to believe that they were responsible for the demise of a civilization, when in actuality they had nothing to do with it. They were given programming with sound and visualization, including pictures of things that would make their soul carry the illusion with it from lifetime to lifetime. This would ensure that they would be able to keep the human from processing the guilt involved, which allowed for control, especially in this lifetime. To complicate matters, some empaths are simply picking up on this collective guilt consciousness of humanity and were not even present on the planet at the time when these atrocities were committed. For the people who actually did contribute to the fall of civilizations, most of them were doing so by mind control. Since we are all connected, humanity carries the guilt or sin within human consciousness. The Ankh was extraterrestrial technology that could be used in mind control by simply amplifying sound and geometric codes into the body. It was like a microphone that amplified sound and energy. The Ankh could be used in healing, but it also used in domination and control. Televisions carry the same mind control vibration through extremely low frequency waves amplified through speakers. Some people carry guilt and remorse for action in past lives and don't even realize what is causing their emotion in this lifetime. It is not necessary to remember everything about a past life in order to heal it. Our bodies serve as clues to perform problems buried deep inside by reacting to things which bring up emotions of fear. Every time a fear emotion arises, it brings an opportunity to clear it. No matter what the reason may appear to be, it is most likely from a deep-seated fear from another time. It may not even be yours, as many people came here to help heal others. Fear emotions include anger, jealousy, hatred, sadness, and guilt. Simply acknowledge that these emotions and allow them to run their courses. Blocking them will cause problems in the physical body, which is another way the body serves us with an alert system. Crying is the most prevalent way these emotions can be transmuted. Women have an easier time with crying than men do, as programming has intended that men do not show their emotions. Thus, some men resort to yelling within anger, or the opposite end of the spectrum, praying in solitude with heartfelt intention. However, there is another way from a higher perspective that is available. By vibrating your body to a higher frequency, anything that is not truth will fall away. None of these illusions are carried in your heart center. You can always find respite and solace inside of yourself. Everyone carries the pureness of the light of our Creator, and expanding this light within the body is like having a cool flame purify thoughts and negative programming. It's imperative to let go of all preconceived notions of who you are or were in a past life, because in our limited scope of vision we tend to place judgment on these lives. Someone who played a dark role for humanity is no less important than someone who carried the light. From a higher perspective, they all had to play in the grand drama. All are derived from one Creator and will return to the one Creator. Now is the time for atonement or at one-ment. We must become at one with ourselves. This involves hearing the call that we are all ready to move on to the next level of experience out of the denseness. As we bring in more and more of the soul particles into our body, in order to raise our vibration, these particles must be cleared of any negative programming as well. This negative programming is from past lives that are actually all occurring within our monads' experience at the same time outside of time and space. All right, there's a lot more to this article here. I'm going to, let's see, the end it says, lead by example within your own power of knowledge of what has happened to humanity by deprogramming yourself first. You cannot put the oxygen mask on another person if you are unconscious. When you have rated your love for yourself as an 11 on a scale of 1 to 10, then you will certainly serve as an example and will be able to turn to help all humanity in the same. Okay, so basically, it's a matter of programming and deprogramming. Programming. It's like a computer or a giant mind. The mind can be programmed. Those who are on the planet have learned how to program the mind. We can program the mind for good. We can program it for bad. There are those who manipulate us through their techniques. The techniques are out in the world that we're using every day. We can break through this programming simply by going into ourselves and understanding and adjusting the vibrations that flow through us. We don't need to have any special machines. We don't need to have anything outside of ourselves to affect that, because those are just things that are affecting us on the outside. We don't need that. All we need to do is go inside, connect with that spirit that flows through us. The spirit of the Christ flows through each and every one of us. Okay? It flows through each and every one of us. It emanates through us. We connect through that. We allow that vibration, which is a higher vibration than this density. We allow that vibration to exist and to expand within us. We can't be manipulated. That was the problem back then that they had with Yeshua, that he wouldn't be manipulated because he was vibrating at a frequency different than they were, so they were afraid of him. So we all have that same opportunity, because Yeshua came to give us this example to show us how we can break free from these chains that are binding us here to all of the physical reality that is going on. It's not that difficult in thinking about how to do it. It's just taking the time and putting in the effort to do it. And once you do, once we move past that and understand the techniques, we free ourselves up. It's very, very freeing to be able to understand that we have more power and control over who we are than we often realize. But society doesn't want that to be. Society is trying to let us know over and over and over again that the outside influences affect us. The outside influences are what cause us to be who and what we're about. But that's not it. They may manipulate us, but it's the inside which moves us forward. So that's why we go inside, so that we can step away from the outer manipulation that is trying to occur every single day, and we free ourselves. All right, here's a channeled message for today. This is Archangel Gabriel, was latest message.
Gabriel Daily Message tilde Monday, May 16th, 2016 by Shelley Young. You have released and reviewed tremendously. New downloads and deeper levels of beingness are taking hold within you like beautiful seeds ready to grow and bloom. You are evolving, shifting, and expanding in delightful ways. Be kind and gentle with yourself through this process, dear ones, for it is far more profound and complex than you realize. It is essential to listen to your needs and give yourself whatever you require at this time. Give yourself permission to be your own tender caretaker. Tilde Archangel Gabriel.
Okay, short and sweet, that message, to be our own caretaker. Kind of goes along with what I was talking about. So, that brings us to our meditation for today. Let's close our eyes. Take a deep breath and exhale. Take another deep breath and exhale again. And another breath and exhale. Now I want you to imagine that you are observing the world. And as you observe this world, you're able to observe the energies around you. And as you're able to see and experience and observe the energies around you, you're able to determine the source of these energies. And you see that many of these energies originate from man-made sources, man-made vibrations, man-made technologies, all aimed at manipulation. And we could see this manipulative effect within these energies as they reach our bodies, try to penetrate into the bodies to affect a change. And we see many affected by these manipulative energies and moving along like zombies, unaware of the manipulation that is taking place. So we see this and intuitively know that this is not the path for us to follow. So we go inside of ourselves, and there we find this source, this flow of energy that is emanated from source through all of life, through us. We feel within this source the spirit of the Christ, the essence of the Mother, the Father. We understand that these energies of source creation are a different vibration than that of humankind. And so we focus on this energy, this Christ light within us, and we imagine it expanding itself outward to all cells within our body. And as it does, the vibrations increase, and we raise our vibration. And as we do, we find that any chains of limitation and manipulation imposed upon the physical body are released. They fall off because the vibration is moving in a different way. And we find that the manipulations of humankind cannot compare or stop the energies within from effectively freeing us. So we focus on the energy of the Christ, that flows through us, knowing that the more we call this forth, the more it shines bright. So as we go forth over the course of this day, let us simply just observe the energies of manipulation in the physical reality, and let us call forth that Christ light within to counteract those energies in ourselves and then expand beyond our own being into the reality of this world, that we might affect others and counteract these energies in the world. And one by one we see one person after the next being affected and inspired by this Christ light, and as it shines bright from person to person and the lights go on, chains fall off and humanity frees itself. And we realize that we are the ones we've been waiting for us simply to understand our connection to Source, understand our ability to free ourselves up simply lies within. And as we bring forth this energy into the world, we find that heaven not only exists within, but without, and that we are bringing it forth into this reality, each and every one of us, moment by moment, day by day. So let's let the subconscious mind continue on this journey of observation and calling forth the light within. And let's bring the conscious mind back to the present moment on the count of 3. 3 coming back to the present moment filled with confidence. 2 coming back to the present moment filled with faith. And 1 coming back to the present moment happy, healthy, and whole. Happy, healthy, and whole. Take another breath. Exhale and open your eyes. All right, my friends, that is it for today. Thank you very much for being here. A lot more information today. Go back to the links. Read the rest of those stories there. I got through portions of each one of them. It's a lot of information to absorb. It's not such a difficult process. All we have to do is make an effort, just a little bit of an effort, just to go inside. And once we allow that spark that we find inside ourselves to grow, it continues to grow. It continues to grow on its own, because that is what it is supposed to do. That is why that spark exists. That is how the Christ saves us, by us calling forth that Christ into our lives. So let us go forth this day, my friends, calling forth that which is within into our being and into this reality, that we might allow this energy to be the saving grace of all of existence. We're all part of this process, my friends, each and every one of us. We don't have to allow this manipulation to occur at this point in time, since we know it exists. It's only by choice that we allow ourselves to be manipulated any further. So let's end the manipulation and let's move forward on this divine path that we know is before us. That's it, my friends. I'll be back tomorrow. Till then, have yourselves an awesome day. I love you. Keep loving each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace. I'm out of here.